Switch me on.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Proton Pack is Not a Toy. My name is Matt. It has been a minute, so I appreciate all of you who have waited for this most recent video to come along. And today I have something that hopefully you enjoy following along with. I have been collecting the parts that have been necessary to create the Ghostbusters Proton Pack thrower from Mack's factory, and up to this point this is everything that has been made available aside from the trigger tip and the banjos. I still have not purchased those. They are still available on the website, and I am planning on getting those, but first I had to take care of this. So the latest offering that has been made available from Mack's factory is in this package that I received last week. Here we have 3 of the latest items that have been made available. This is the Neutrona wand emitter latch kit. This is the Neutrona wand emitter and extension tube kit. And wrapped up in here, we have the Neutrona wand front handle. So it's the whole front handle assembly along with the clear tube and the pop mechanism that goes along with that. So I wanted to go through the process of installing all of that today, showing you how I do it, and if I run into any issues along the way, then we can go through that. Pop mechanisms can be tricky, and hopefully Mack's factory has unlocked something here for us to where it's going to be an easy solution to put pop mechanisms into our Neutrona wand throwers. The pop mechanisms are really the only mechanical part of any proton pack. You think most of it is just the static parts that are, screwed on to the pack or the wand itself. We do have the switches and the lights and the sounds if you do have a speaker in your pack, but the only parts that actually move are going to be the parts that cause the pop mechanism to work for the tip of the thrower to extend. So that's kind of what gives it the wow factor. If you have one that works well and works consistently, I've seen them use rubber bands, I've seen them use multiple versions of springs, and from what I've seen from this one, it looks very reliable, and I'm looking forward to putting that into what I have of the thrower so far. Once all of this is installed, really the only thing that we will be missing from Mack's factory will be the instrument bar and trigger box that goes on this side, as well as electronics. I don't know how much of that is going to be offered. Some of the lights and light covers still need to be added there, and for the majority of it at that point things will be done. Also the grips, and at that point we'll pretty much have the whole thrower. I do have a vintage clippered valve on mine. So this is a vintage 701, and I'm not sure if that's going to be something that is offered through Mack's factory, a replica of a clippered valve, but those are easy enough to come across in the wild. Either get a new one or look hard enough and you can find the vintage ones. But that's what has been made available up to this point, and today I'm going to go through all of these parts and install them here on this wand. If you've never bought from Mack's factory before, then you might not be familiar with the packaging. Each of them comes with its own little instruction booklet, which do come in very handy. And then the parts many times are sectioned off into different parts of the plastic to help keep things organized. And this being 3 separate parts that were ordered in a bundle, I have 3 separate instruction manuals and parts that are sectioned off just for those parts. I will tell you that this set right here, just these 3 packages, were $340, which to me felt like a lot, but I'm already invested this much into the wand and I want to be able to continue the process, but it was one of those sticker shock moments for me. I do understand that for Mack's factory, there is a lot of machining, a lot of research, a lot of logistics that go on in the background, and sometimes the prices of those things get kicked to the customer. That's the way things work, and I get that. And I'll also just put it out there that all of this stuff is stuff that I bought myself. None of it has been comped. None of it has been sent by Mack's factory. This is not a sponsored video, and I will be free to say anything I like or don't like about these parts along the way. You guys know I'm pretty positive and don't really like to crap on people if something isn't good. So I'm very, there's very low likelihood that I'm going to say something very negative about this or really anything. But just putting that out there so that anybody that's watching this video knows that this is something where I'm a consumer just like you guys, and I'll be able to give you a honest reaction to the parts, how everything works, without having anybody looking over my shoulder or feel the pressure of someone giving me something and feeling the need to say something geared more positive in that nature. That being said, I'm going to open up some of these, look through the instruction manuals, figure out how they say to put everything together, and then I'll go through the process. So I'll break here and then pick up with you guys in just a second. Okay, I am starting with the Neutrona wand emitter and extension tube. This is part number NW121 and 122. This includes the clear tube, the compression spring, the emitter tube that goes on the inside, as well as a inner connector, this part that slides within the channel inside there, as well as some hardware. There are some socket head cap screws here, the black ones, and these washers. These are for the part of the assembly where it connects to the main tube here. If you've already purchased and built the main body part, then you may already have those. So these can be extra. These aren't necessarily part of just this individual part of the build, but if you don't already have those or you need extras, then you have some that you can use along the way here. There are also these very small silver socket head cap screws, as well as some small black O-rings that will be part of the installation of each of these tubes together. Don't get them confused and try to use these screws and washers instead of the other components that are here. So I may reference the instruction manual here just so I have all of my holes lined up in the right orientation, but I'm going to start with this connector. Things are falling off. Start with this connector as well as the what is called here the emitter tube, so you just may call it the clear tube. That's what I've always called it. And line up the holes There will be a couple of holes on either side, and then before you put any hardware in there, you take the extension tube, the metal part, and line up those holes all in a row. So you should have 3 different holes that you're lining up that will line up on either side. Take your smaller screws. I'm gonna put this down so you can use both hands. I'm gonna put a couple of these O-rings on top. So once we get those lined up, I don't want that to bind at all. I want it to catch in there, go in smoothly. Give it a few twists with the included Allen wrench. Mack's factory is good about including all of the hardware as well as the Allen wrenches, or hex keys you may call them. And if you are this far along in the build, as I am, you may have a nice collection of Allen wrenches because they are sold with all the individual parts, and many of these screws have the same hex key that goes with it. There we have it. So I'm going to tighten it enough to where it is flush over the top here, and then there is no part of it sticking out, because this will slide in and out of the main extension tube. There's a little bit of rattling in there, so that might be something where I go in later and add a little tape or something on the inside there just to give it a little more security so it's not bouncing around, but I do feel a little bit of rattling there. The screws are secure, does not feel like those are going to come out. Next part of the process is taking, I'm going to call this gold, you may say it's a different color, this piece, and that goes into the large slot. There is a little spot that sticks out on the bottom there, and that will go into the slot on the opposite side. So line those up on this side, on the bottom and the top, and then slide that all the way down like that. Then we're going to take this compression spring, push it up here, and it should hit the end right here where that connector is. Push up against that, and then it has a portion here where it seats on the gold part there as well. So it's in there. It is going to hang out where it needs to, right there. And then you can see where the compression will take part from that angle there. The next section I'm going to work on is the front handle assembly. This is part number NW119 and 120, and includes the parts that you see here. Before I get to that, I will show you that I did take off the bottom of the main body, and I did take off the clippered valve, you may have noticed. I told you before, you do have the included socket head cap screws and the washers there. I had them already put on the front nub here on what I had already collected and pretty much had built to this point. To be able to reach this screw right here, you have to take off the clippered valve. And I'm taking these off because at one point in this build where you connect these to the main body, it does say that you have to drill out the threads on these 2 holes so that it seats correctly into the inner tube on the inside. It does include a 9/64 drill bit that you can take, and then you can see in the instruction manual, it does show where you just go in and open those up a little bit. I'm just going to do them by hand, just so that I know I'm not being too rough with it or going too wide. Now that those are drilled out, I'll start the assembly of the main tube and the handle. So you can see this was the one that is black. The other one's black, anodized black. That's what I chose to go with on mine. Some of the parts you can purchase to be either raw or sandblasted. Everything I've gone with so far has been the anodized black. And you can leave it this way. Once you're done with it, you can go through and paint it a uniform color. Up to you when you get to that point. Haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do yet. So when I get to that point, I'll do that. So main tube and handle is how these parts are described in the booklet here. I'm going to take, this one has a slot right here and a couple of mounting holes on this side of it. Note that the ear there, the gun ear that's closest to my face, actually the one on the opposite side. Now the one that's closest to my face, see how it appears to be bent downward. That is accurate to the actual Proton pack props, and that is something that Mack's factory went through the detail of recreating with this. So if you think you got one that's bent, you did, but that's right. So be happy about it. So I'm going to take this and I'm trying to line up this hole here with the main slot as those go together. And once I get in the right neighborhood there, it shows here to put the Allen wrench included inside the hole to make sure that it's all lined up. I'm going to go ahead and open all of this here. This one comes with 3 separate Allen wrenches, so that tells you that you've got screw heads of 3 different sizes, because you're going to need those. I believe a couple of these are for the grips that will be included later, and so you won't use those on the build today. There is one washer and one small silver screw here, as well as a set screw. Alright, so it's showing to take the smallest, put it in through the hole here to help yourself find where that slot is. Once you know where that slot is, probably shouldn't have wore a black shirt today, I apologize. Once you find where that hole is, that helps you to know how to line up your screw that's going in there. So we're going to take the silver screw with the washer, put those together. Trying to keep these lined up with my other hand, that's why I'm only using one hand. This will be the one that works with this wrench. Okay, when that's done, that's what that looks like. So at this point, this tube should not slide this way or that way, but it will rotate, because remember the wand does have a rotate function of about, I wouldn't say 90 degrees. It's close to it, but not quite. So once that is in there, I'm going to give it another little quarter turn just to make sure I have it all the way. Eventually that will be covered when the grips are offered. The grip will go right here. There is a hole on either side where these longer socket head cap screws will go in up to that point, and they stick out enough to where they will hold that grip in place. Now I'm going to test fit the extension tube that we did earlier. This one here. It shows to test fit it to ensure the limiter screw does not contact the extension tube. So we're going to take this here. I can slide that in and out, and it's not clipping at any point with that screw that I just installed. So that's good, that's what we want. Once I know that is good, we're going to flip it around the other way. This is the grip lock, where we're going to take the set screw and put it into its mounting hole there. And what that will do, see how loose this is now? If we put the set screw in there, we can put it in as far as we want it to go. And if we want it to hold and not twist, then we can set it that way. Or if we want it to have it where it moves with just a little bit of friction, then that's an option as well. But that's what the set screw is for. I'm going to make sure I have the right Allen wrench to go with it first. That's going to be it right there. Set screw, Allen wrench going into the block right here. Right in the hole. I can feel it, but it's still moving. Now it's held. So just that much was enough to change it that much. Back off a little bit, so I do still have a little bit of rotation. And at any point I want to go in and change that, I can tighten that over right there. And that shows that this part assembly is completed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this and the emitter tube, assemble those together, connect those to the main body. So the first is front handle to Neutrona 1 body assembly. I have already reamed out the holes there on the inside. The holes there will correspond with the two open holes on this inner tube. So I'm going to test fit these in there together so that that lines up. You may have one that has a little bit of extra friction in there. You can go through with some sandpaper and clean it out. You may need to Dremel it or something like that. But you'll see that it does not sit flush right here with the gun lock, and that's okay. That's what it's supposed to do, okay? So once that is on there, you may notice a little bit of bend with it, or not being 100% angled. Again, that's something, remember, the props that we're building were wonky. They had that kind of feature to them to where not everything was 100% square. Those are the kind of things we want in these props, right? On the inside, right here, this is the part that's going to catch on the inside. There's going to be like a little hook that goes in there. That's what opens and releases. It causes this to pop out with the extension, right? And on this gold piece here, this is what's going to screw in on the inside of these two holes. So when it's fully extended, imagine on the inside that's as far as it goes in, okay? Then when we push this all the way in, most of this tube is going to slide within the gun body, but this gold piece is going to move up here, and so it's going to sit right about here, and then when we release it, it will pop to right about here. So all that's moving is this spring is compressing, opening and closing right there. And the actual mechanical part on the inside will be that last part of the latch that we add. So at this point, I'm going to take this part and I'm going to slide it all the way in to the point where this top hole here lines up with the top hole in the main body, and again with the other part that I just put in the belt. So all of this is going together. I'm going to find that tiny little hole. Found it. Then I should be able to look through the side here, yep, and see that I have that hole lined up. And when it turned on me, that's the grip turning and not all the tubes that need to be lined up. So get it seated just right so I'm not stripping it out or binding. Just enough to get it hand twisted in there so I can pull this one out. Now that one goes on the top. Now we take our socket head, cap screw, Allen wrench, tighten them down just enough, not so much that we're causing it to dent on the inside, because we do want everything to continue to line up just right, but it's snug. Now we'll see. We've got pop. Now with the latch that we're going to add on the inside, that's what's going to allow us to be able to push it in and hold it, and then when we hit the release, have it pop out. So that will be the next part as we move along in the build. All right, just to add a little bit, I did put the grip screws in on my wand just so I don't lose them and I know where they are, and they're ready to go when the grips do become part of the parts that are available. I also tightened down the set screws so I don't have a whole lot of wiggle in the front handle as I work on this part of the build. This part is the Neutrona 1 emitter latch kit, and this is part numbers NW103B and 103A, or A and B if you prefer that order. And this part is going to get potentially a little complicated, but there are not a whole lot of parts. It's just a lot of lining things up the right way. I told you there was like a little finger on the inside, the latch that will catch, and that's the way that's designed to hook into the inside of that tube. You remember that spot where there was room to catch? So that's where it holds it. It will be connected to the lever on the inside that sticks out over here. So when you move the lever, this is connected to it and will move in sync with it. So when you push that lever, you are opening that latch. That latch is what is connected there and causes that to let go. Spring takes over, pops out the pop mechanism, the front handle assembly with the emitter tube extending, and then when you push it back in, it pushes that metal part right back into this. It works like a little ramp where it kicks it back up, and then once it gets into place, it will hook on the back side of that little catch there. That's how it all works. On the opposite side of the what do you call this? The trigger release there. There is this little part that'll go on the side here, a little disc. I would have preferred for this to have been a raw color, just basic metal, but I'll have to go back and look at the reference pictures and see if it's actually the color that I do need. This is in anodized black. My build, just to remind you guys, is intended to be a GB1 brand new Spengler thrower in pack, so very little weathering. I want it to look like a brand new, just built Proton pack, not like a lot of the ones now where we see it has a lot of weathering. So I'm trying to get that fresh, clean look. Another part that is included here is the spring that will go on the latch there itself as well. Reminds me of one that you would see on an old clothespin. You do get a piece of the green tubing that will go on the end. You can cut it to the length that you want. I'm not going to cut it on this video because I'm going to try to get it matched up with reference pictures after I'm done. And you can cut those to the length that you want based on if you are trying to replicate a pack. Then double check those before you determine the length that you want, because that's kind of a cut once opportunity there. Again, we have some hardware. We have some Allen wrenches, one very large one, one teeny tiny one, two screws of different lengths, and a tiny little set screw that goes with this small Allen wrench. That's all that comes in here, but again, this is kind of a more complicated part. This might be hard for me to show you exactly what's going on as I'm working on the inside. I don't really have the capabilities of putting my camera above where I'm working, so I will try to talk my way through it as I'm working along here, but I can't guarantee that you'll be able to see everything, so my apologies leading into that as we go here. To start, it shows that we are beginning with the latch itself and taking we got a number 832 screw. There should be one that's 3/8 of an inch and one that is 1/2 inch. So the 1/2 inch will be longer. The 1/2 inch goes facing this direction into the mounting hole. It's easier for me to say. All right, I apologize. I ran out of phone storage. I had to go back and make some space. So at some point it cut off. I have already put in the 2 screws in the latch, and now we're going to start installing it on the inside here with the lever. So you take the lever and trying to get it from the same angle I'm seeing from the picture. I'm going to want it this way, and then the lever goes through the hole here on the top. I won't go all the way through yet because we have to thread the latch into it. So again, I'm going to try to make it where you guys can see, but I cannot guarantee that you will be able to see. So I've got the lever in there, and then I'm going to attach the extension latch to the shaft of the lever on the inside. Before I push it all the way through, I do take this spring that I'm going to call the what did I call it before? There was a word I used. What was it? Clothespin spring. That's what it reminds me of. We use them as check clips back in the day at my house. That goes on at a certain angle to where the little hook part is towards the latch. Again, I apologize, you won't be able to see. That goes in there. And then insert the lever through the hole on the opposite side. some point I have to stop worrying if you can see so that I can see. I apologize. That goes over there to this side. There you can see. Hopefully you can see on the inside. That latch is in there, sliding around. I will tighten that down. Now I'm going to take the set screw and put it into the lever retainer disc. I don't necessarily want it flush all the way up against the side over here because it'll start rubbing and you won't have room for your piece of plastic covering here. So I'm going to slide that on there just to give myself a point of reference on how far is too far. So that way I know it won't rub. And that way I know if I put the set screw in, now it will be at a good spot. I got it started. Again, it's a set screw, so I'm just putting it in. Get to hold its position. That keeps this part from falling off. It keeps everything in line on the inside and the other side of the lever on that opposite side. So tight as I can get that, so that's not going to pop off. Pull it against it, it's not coming off, so I'm comfortable with that. Again, this was over here just as a way to brace it, so I know how far that needs to go. Happy with that so far. All the parts on the inside we are going to get lined up so that the catch lines up with the latch, lines up with the tube, all the words that sound the same, sort of. Okay, enough rambling. Loop the end of the return spring around the latch. There is a small slot, I'll show you on here, in the latch where that extra arm of the spring slots into it. That's what I'm doing right now. That will all end up pushing on the side over here by where the bar graph light will eventually go. That's where it'll also get a little bit full and confusing later on when you start adding the electronics, because obviously this is a very limited space. When you start putting a lot of stuff in here, it gets crowded. Return spring, move the latch over towards the wall of the wand body. I'm going to make sure that that other end of the return spring is on the inside of the hole where the bar graph goes. There. So all of that has been forced down on this side. Again, hard to see. I realize it. Apologies. So that's in there. This should line up with all of this. The latch, so when I push this down, it should line up with that latch. One thing that's causing me to not get it to line up right is that extra bolt that's in there on the latch. The more that is tightened down, pushes it farther into the wall and allows that latch to have a certain angle. So you can loosen and tighten that screw, and that will change the angle of the latch. So move that a little bit. I'm getting a little more friction now. I'm going to back it out even more. Instructions really didn't say how far to take it in there. So this is kind of a guessing game right now. Let's see if that was enough. Okay, so now it connected. So if I release the latch, which is still not tied down to the lever yet, if I push up on that, it should pop right out. Now I push it back in, it connects. That's the way it's supposed to function. And so I have the latch lined up with my lever where I want it, and I'm going to go in and tighten the screw on the lever itself. Get it nice and tight. Try again. Successful test. There you go. That is a working pot mechanism. So I might go in and just make a few adjustments there on having everything lined up exactly the way I want it. But for all intents and purposes, that is done. I will go back and add my clippered valve and the bottom plate with the hook and the V-hook, everything that goes along with that. That will all be put together eventually. And this is nice because of the spring, it won't get all stretched out, it just gets compressed. And so a spring will not lose anything when it's just compressed. It's when you stretch it out. It's like a rubber band. If you keep them stretched for a long period of time and then you try to release it, they're going to lose that tension. Having the compression spring in there should not over time lose anything. So again, I will add the trigger tip and the banjos probably next. Just haven't decided exactly when I'm going to make that purchase. But for now, I will call this build complete up to this point. Thanks again for tuning in today. This has been a long video. If you made it this far, thanks for watching and hanging out with me today. I do recommend Mack's Factory's parts. And like I said, I'm open to saying anything positive or negative about it. So far, everything I've seen on this has been positive. The only thing I'm seeing right now is that I believe on the actual part, this part would be silver if you were to see it sticking out. So that's something I can go in later and paint. But I'll double check reference photos on that as well. Cool parts, fun stuff. Wish they came out a little bit faster, but I understand why they don't. And overall, super high quality stuff. And you just gotta wait for the parts and be able to afford it. It is on the pricier side of things in the Ghostbusters world. So save up your money if it's something you want to have. The parts are 100% high quality, and you can judge for yourself if that's something that you can afford or you want to spend your money on. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day. And whenever the next video comes around, I'll see you in that one. Bye.